Hello and welcome again to another episode of Battle Ready. Where, this time, this episode is a little bit completely inspired by a video I watched on Warhammer Weekly. I'll try to link it.
This way.
Called Keep, Kill, Change. Now, that video was quite long and very, very much from a competitive perspective, all of which good information. But I thought we would take a look at the same idea.
As you are.
Okay. I thought we'd take a look at the same idea. Basically, 3.0 has been out for a little over a year and a half.
Yeah.
So we're probably, a little bit more than halfway through its life cycle.
Yeah.
And so the question is, all right, what did they get right? Mm-hmm. What about 3.0 is amazing, and we would keep it basically wholesale. We would keep it in place for the remainder of this edition, into the next edition, whatever. We think it's a great edition with, maybe very minor changes, but overall just keeping it as it is. Then what would we change? What is a good idea that maybe isn't implemented well? What is something that doesn't quite work right and needs a little bit of an overhaul? Something that the idea maybe is right. Mm-hmm. Or the thing it's trying to do is good, but it needs to be changed. It needs some significant work. And then last is the kill. What things are just jettison them into the sun? They're just not good. So I wrote down a couple. I have my cheat sheet here. I wrote down a couple, but Drake actually also has one for each category.
In my mind powers.
So let's try keep. So in the keep category, these are things 3rd edition got right. The designers were right on the ball, right on the money. They knew what they were doing. They had a hit. Drake, what do you think? What is a keep?
Heroic abilities and monstrous actions.
All right. Why do you like that?
I like it that it gives your little foot heroes something to do.
Yeah, sure.
And your monsters more than a big target to a big red bullseye to get shot at.
Is that what happens to your monsters usually?
Or fleshy, or red, or blue, or
Sure.
several color targets.
So you like that the monsters have things to do. It's really interesting. That's actually partly my first keep. My first keep is heroic actions.
Yeah.
I think heroic actions are phenomenal. I think they make your heroes worthwhile. They give you always have something to do in the hero phase.
Yes.
It also, I love the 4 basic ones that let you
get a command point?
Get a command point or block spells, which is super important, especially for armies that are pretty low in spells.
Like
if you're no, they've got, actually I don't know Khorne well enough. But if you're running like a Gloomspite list without a lot of unbinds, if you're running
I only have Scragrat.
Yeah, and we only play him sometimes. Yeah. And then or if you're running, there's a lot of lists that have maybe one. Iron Jaws doesn't often have a lot of spells. So there's a lot of lists where magic is not the important part. Yeah. So being able, any Caradron list except for Baraknar, right? They don't have any unbinds. Yeah, because unless you have an Ether Chemist.
You have to have spell in a bottle to cast spells.
To cast a spell, yeah. So
and it has to be
having that ability, I think, is pretty cool. Giving all of your heroes something they can do, giving you something to do in the hero phase. I do like it. I even like how some battle tomes have given unique heroic actions to that faction. I know Fireslayers has one. Daughters of Cain has one. And for the most part, those have been really good. They really fall into the flavor of things, and I really like it. I didn't put down monstrous actions as my keep. I think they're pretty good. The only thing I don't like about them is that 2 of them are way more useful than the other 2.
Which ones?
Stomp. Stomp is great.
Yeah.
Stomp is great.
And Roar?
And Roar is really, really good to turn off command abilities. Titanic Duel is fine, but really all it is giving your monster an all-out attack. Mm-hmm. So you're sort of just like saving a command point if they're fighting a monster. Okay, all right. Yeah. And Smash to Rubble is also okay, but it just doesn't come up that much. Now, when it does come up,
it's good.
Super cool, right? But it just doesn't come up that much. So I think that while I like the idea of Monstrous Rampages, and even some battle tomes have unique Monstrous Rampages, also sort of cool.
Yeah.
but I would like to see a little bit more. I would like the Monster Rampages to be a little bit better than they are. Stomp and Roar, both great.
Yeah.
The other two, a little too situational. What about, so a couple other things. Here's my other two keeps. I had 3 keeps, heroic actions being one. So one of the things I really, really like is max ±1 to hit and wound. I like it. I like that you're interesting. Well, let me tell you why I like it. I like that you can't get negatived into oblivion, where your 3-up attack gets a negative and a negative and a negative, and suddenly you're on 6s. It's a real big feel bad moment when your awesome hammer warriors, your Troggoths or whatever, they're coming in, and suddenly they're hitting on 6s because they all forgot how to swing hammers. It's like,
that's how Grots used to play.
That is how Grots
you just could not kill them.
So I like that. Same thing on the wound. I also like that they've made wound buffs a little bit more rare. Yeah, I like that.
That's the part I like.
But that is good to me. I know on the save, it's a little bit of people are a little bit more back and forth on that because save stacking can be an issue, and whether or not the Ren should apply. So I'm not as sold on save, although I think it's fine. I think it's fine. But the max ±1 to hit and wound, really, I like it. It's again a situation where, or go the other way, where you've got these 4-up guys, and maybe they're pretty good, but since they only hit on a 4-up, they're not great. But then you find all the buffers in the world, and now they're hitting on 2-ups, and suddenly they become super awesome. Yeah, you get rid of those situations. It normalizes things, and I think it makes it easier to sort of decide from a casual perspective what units are going to be good. Because you can look at their war scroll, and if they're 4s, you think to yourself, okay, well, with the right buffs, they could be 3s. Or, oh, they could be 3s, maybe.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be any worse than 5s.
Yeah.
But if you have to know every buff in the book, some unit that looks not so great actually might be amazing because you can stack all the buffs. And so that eliminates that trap. And I think from a casual perspective, it's pretty good. What do you think?
I don't know. You make a valid argument.
Well, I'm glad you think my argument is valid. Do you not like the Mac? You think we should get more than ±1 that we could stack on?
I think it should be at least 2. Because if your guy has an ability, and you put that on him, and then it's rend 2, it just goes to -1. That ability is wasted.
Yeah, the save one I'm not as hot on. I think the save one does have some issues. I don't know that I really want changes, although if changes were made, I'm sure I wouldn't be upset either. It's really just the hit and wound.
For hit and wound, I feel like I'd like it better if it was +2 or -2. +2, -1.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Okay, last keep, at least for me, one thing I think is great, super good change from 2.0. I actually think this is really, really good, and that is command point distribution.
Yes.
I really like that you get command points at the beginning of the round. I like that you get one for your general. I like that the person who goes first gets less than the person who goes second. I really like it. And I like it not just because it makes sense and you keep the engine going, but also because there are so many command abilities that make the game fun. Being able to unleash hell, having that all-out defense on your unit, having an all-out attack. A lot of units, a lot of heroes have command abilities. So thinking to yourself, all right, I'm going to save a command point so I can use that ability. It adds a little inspiring presence. It adds a little economy to the game that I really, really like. And so I would never want to go back to the old method of you get like one or two at the start of the game, and then that's it. Those are your command points for the rest of the game. Yeah, not a fan of that.
I mean, we never really used them. We always had just stacks of them.
Oh, I don't know. I used mine. But it was harder with some armies because you didn't have a lot of those, Night
Haunt.
No, not Night Haunt. You had all-out attack and you had inspiring presence, but that's it.
Yeah.
So you didn't have an all-out defense. You didn't have an unleash hell. You didn't have a rally. And so you didn't have as many opportunities. And in some armies, like our Seraphon army, a bunch of our heroes have command abilities.
Yeah.
So they could use them. But some armies, We just don't have a lot of units with command abilities, and so they would stack up sometimes. Okay, so things we would change, things that we think are a good idea or could be good, but they need a little bit of modification, or maybe a lot of modification. Drake, what is your change?
I would change the way battle tactics work.
Okay, how so?
I would change it so that they're more of an end game kind of thing, like grand strategies.
Okay.
Where it's like, take eye for an eye for an example. You can just say, "Oh, I'm gonna kill that 1 health Carnosaur."
Mm-hmm.
You just finish. So I would make it. You get 1 point for killing 1 unit, 2 points for killing 2. If you kill 3 units, it goes 5 points.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that each battle tactic had multiple point levels, right? Because right now every battle tactic's worth 2 points. It's just sort of a flat. Although occasionally it'll be like if you do something with a Galatians veteran, or previously if you did something with a monster, you could get a bonus point. But mostly they're pretty flat. And then your proposal is to say, all right, each battle tactic is worth 1, 2, or 3 or more points based on how well you do that tactic.
And that it only counts at the end game, because on the double turn, if you land 2 battle tactics in a row, that's 4 points.
Yeah, but that doesn't super matter so much, because if you only can do 1 battle tactic per turn, whether you count it at the end and say you got 10 points or you got 2 points each round, it's going to end up being the same.
Yeah,
right?
But I like it where
but I think having that's really interesting, because then you could have a turn where you get no points for a battle tactic or 1 point for a battle tactic, but you're building up to the tactic on your next turn where you get 3 points or 4 points for it. And then as the opponent, you're trying to, you see that coming, and you're like, oh no, I better move these guys out of the way so you can't kill me, or I better run because you're on the rampage. That's pretty interesting. I like that idea.
That's how I think the battle tactics should work.
I'll have to give that a little bit more thought, but that's not a bad idea. So a couple things that I thought, my number 1 change is actually Path to Glory.
Really?
So I think the Path to Glory from 2.0 was abysmal. I think the Path to Glory in 3.0 is pretty good, but I think the one thing it's missing is there's no story.
Yeah.
Like, it's really good about, building up your war band, and it's a great way to start playing the game.
Yeah.
Where you start with 600 points, and then over time, as you play games, you can buy some more models and paint them up, right? It's a great system, and I like the little bonuses it gives you, but it's really sort of up to you to make up the story.
Yeah. So you essentially have to learn how to become a dungeon master.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. I would really like to see, even like a separate supplement. I was hoping that Seasons of War would be like this, but it's not.
No.
But I would like to see a separate supplement completely filled with narrative battle plans, and especially with some that are like 2 war bands are fighting each other over an artifact or whatever, Storm Vault, and then where it's like 2 or 3 or 4 adventures or battle plans right in a row that you could do one after the other that tells a narrative arc, right? And you could even have like in a lot of games it'll say read this at the end depending on who won or whatever, and you could create that narrative and plop your army into an existing story.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that change as part of Path to Glory, or as part of narrative play generally, so that any Path to Glory army could do that. Another thing I think needs to be changed is the Battle Shock and Bravery. This one's sort of a big overhaul, because this would affect every war scroll in the game. This would affect core rules. Oh yeah,
That would get.
So I think Battle Shock and Bravery it's a really dull instrument. I get what it's trying to do. It's trying to simulate battlefield fear, right? But the system where you just roll d6 and add your casualties, and then sometimes you have abilities where you roll 2d6 against Bravery, and then you have things like, okay, well, all demons and all undead, they're all 10s.
Yeah, so it's
right.
hard.
So, if you're fighting one of those armies, it's just like, okay, I guess none of those abilities are going to work.
Yeah.
It's just very clunky. And then what makes it really bad is you get something like Oryx, and a lot of destruction armies have pretty low bravery.
Yeah, but because they're
and then
not die.
You have a couple Gut Rippers die,
Yeah.
And then the whole unit runs away. It's ridiculous.
That's my biggest argument with Squig Herd. Squig Herd die.
Yeah, their bravery is 3. So they're gonna run.
Yeah. It was good back in like 1.0 or wherever they came out, but now.
But I think the system needs to be scrapped. I think you could still have a mechanic where there's a battle shock phase and stuff runs. And I think Inspiring Presence, see, that's the other thing. Inspiring Presence is like a Band-Aid fix so that you can say that at least one unit is going to be okay.
Yeah. But
a lot of times, especially if you have an undead army, a death army, I guess. Especially if you have a death army where everything has bravery 10, it's really hard to make 2 units in threat of running.
Yeah.
So that means your Inspiring Presence is going to take care of you. Whereas in a destruction army, that may not be the case.
Yeah, you have to decide on what you want to save. Sure.
So I just think the system's clunky. I think if we had a different system that militated about whether or not stuff's going to run away, and if we had another system sort of to demonstrate their bravery in terms of, how that's going to look. I don't know. I don't know what that system is. I'm not saying that I have the perfect answer here, but I think it should change. I think it's a pretty blunt instrument. It's pretty clunky, and I think it could either be made more granular to make it more interesting, or made more elegant and simpler to avoid the rules bloat, but have it be something that's a little bit more intuitive than just D6 models run. And then the last thing I would change, and this isn't so big, and I think they've been playing with this a little bit, and that's the double turn incentive. So in the first, right now, the only incentive is if you go second, you get an extra command point.
Yeah.
In the Thondia battle pack, if you went second in the 3rd battle round, you got to remove an objective. Now that's super powerful, but that only mattered for the 3rd battle round. And now if you, in Gallat, if you go second, you can pick the Proving Ground, which is okay. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's
with things.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not nothing, but it's nothing that's going to make me not take the double turn. I'll tell you that much. And so what I'd really like to see actually is an incentive built in, not just for going second in the round, but for taking a double. So that if you go second in one battle round and you go first in the next, that should be a viable option. And I actually like the roll-off. I think it's sort of fun. I think there's a lot of games that can be controlled by that. But I also think if you're going to take the double, you are getting a big advantage. And so your opponent should get something to compensate. And make it a choice. Because every time I had the 3rd round double turn in Thondia, it was a big choice. Like, do I want to take the double? Because
I would always snatch the objective.
Because you're going to take the objective. And there were plenty of times when I said, no, I'm not going to take the double, or I'm going to specifically give Drake the double so that I get to remove the objective, right? It was a big, big thing. And I think they need to have something like that more generally, just in the core rules, so that, and I would tie it to the double specifically. I wouldn't tie it to a certain battle round. I wouldn't tie it to whoever goes second in a round. I would just say, if you double, then your opponent gets some bonus, right?
Or you get a debuff where...
Yeah, maybe. I would do it the other way. I think it feels better for somebody to get buffed up than for you to get debuffed. Even though mechanically it works out about the same.
Maybe they should do both. Your opponent gets even Steven Curtin.
Yeah, but you got to be careful not to go too far with it, because if you go too far, then nobody takes the double, and that's not good either. It should be a hard choice.
Yes.
So every time it's like, ooh, I could take the double and do this thing, but he would get that thing over there. And then, sometimes you take it and sometimes you don't. But the choice should be a real one every single turn.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Now.
For killing.
What'd they get wrong? What have they tried to implement, or what exists in the game that just needs to be jettisoned into the sun? Get rid of it. What is awful? Drake, what is awful? Cover. Why cover?
It never matters.
Yeah, pretty rarely matters.
It never matters.
Yeah.
And even when it does, it just gives you look out, sir.
Yeah, I think cover is pretty tough. I think a lot of things around shooting are pretty tough. Cover, you have to be so close to the terrain.
Yeah.
And, the line of sight rules are super forgiving in Age of Sigmar, where If you can see any part of the enemy unit, you can just shoot.
Nibble it with their sword.
I think I pretty much agree with you. And my first kill, I only have 2 kills.
Okay.
My first kill is the terrain rules in general.
Yeah.
I think all the terrain rules in the base game are pretty terrible.
Yeah, we don't even use them because they just don't matter.
Garrisons are pretty bad. I hate that you can climb halfway up something. And what's interesting is in Warcry, if you climb halfway up something and end your turn, your model falls.
Yeah. So
your model's always on the table. You never have to remember that they're halfway up something, unless they're on a ladder. I mean, there's some special stuff, but in general, they don't go halfway up. But in AOS, whole units can be halfway up, a wall or something, and say, oh yeah, my guys are actually on the middle of this wall, and make life hard. So it's just, I really dislike the terrain rules. I don't, and they have rules like impassable.
Yeah.
But those are only on War Scrolls. Yeah, but they're only on War Scrolls.
Yeah.
They're not part of the main terrain pack, the terrain suite. So I think the terrain rules are really quite poor. And if I wanted to kill something, you know what I would kill?
Me.
No. I would kill the mystical terrain stuff.
Oh, really?
That's where you roll d6 and then this terrain is deadly. And you roll, and that one's arcane. We never use it.
No.
It's dumb.
It's useless.
It's terrible. It hardly ever matters. And when it does matter, half the time you forget it anyway.
Yeah.
The mystical terrain stuff is nonsense, and we just don't deal with it.
In fact, Seraphon have special rules that only the good stuff matters to them.
That's the one thing that's bad about ignoring the mystical terrain.
Is that Seraphon don't get that?
Yeah, then you're like taking something away from the Seraphon. But the Seraphon are really good anyway, so I'm not gonna cry that they're losing that. All right, the only other thing that I would kill, so I only have really 2 things on my kill list. The only other thing I would kill is the Battle Regiment Battalion. So that's the one that lets you put all your stuff into one drop. I
like that one.
You like it?
That would be something I put in my keep list. Actually.
Really? So let me tell you why I hate it, and then you tell me why you like it. So I hate it because the whole purpose of it is to have few drops so you can pick the first turn. And that to me just feels so gamey. It feels so, it's completely ignoring the narrative, it's completely ignoring the story, and it's just like, here's the game terms. I would way rather have a command entourage rather than get an extra artifact, do those kinds of things to make your army more flavorful and fun and unique than just say, I'm dropping everything and now I get to pick who goes first. And I don't like that. And I also don't like how big of an impact that can make on games. There's some armies where they have to go first, and so they just put everything in a battle reg and then they can pick to go first. And I feel like I don't mind the drops and the drops deciding, but I don't like the unified battle reg. What do you think?
I like the unified battle reg because if it's Nurgle versus Night Hunt, without the battle reg, Night Hunt has 0 chance of choosing who goes first. Just no chance.
Well, it just depends on the list, right? Depends on how elite the units are. But you're right.
Our list.
If you have a mortal Nurgle list, which tends to be more elite and fewer units, and Night Hunt tends to be more units, at least the way we play it.
Nurgle will choose who goes first every time.
That's true. Our list. But how many times have you chosen Battle Reg instead of taking 2 artifacts? You always take 2 artifacts.
Yes, but I'm just putting it out there that I would like I would like to keep Battle Reg.
Okay. All right. So we have a little disagreement on that, but that's fine because we can have different opinions. So anyway, those are our thoughts on keep, kill, and change.
Kill.
Definitely.
Definitely Executioner.
Let me know, or let us know what you think in the comments. I'm really interested to see what aspects of AOS people love, what aspects people think are okay but could use some work, and what just, fire it out the airlock. We're sick of this. Get it out of our game.
Vote it out. It's the imposter.
It's the imposter. You vote it out. It's too sus. And this has been our picks. Again, from a completely casual standpoint, right? But I think these are the things that have made our games great. Things that we would love to see it.
I would like to change battle tactics. That's the one thing I want to change.
So I think it'll be good. Well, anyway, thank you so much for watching. This has been another episode of Battle Ready.